It was just 2 months ago when these teams were undefeated, ranked, and thought they had a legit shot in the Big Ten race. Fast forward to today, and neither know how to win. USC's lost 4 of their last 5. Nebraska's dropped their last 3. And if you ask Vegas, they'd tell you neither of them are going to a bowl game. With nothing left to lose, both these coaches made huge changes on offense. And if either finds the spark they've been missing, they're going to walk away the winner. It's a meaningless game nationally, but a huge game for their futures. So today, we'll talk about Nebraska's path to a win, where USC can take advantage, and I'll give you my final score prediction. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Crazed. If you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss tomorrow's live interview. And if you think one of these teams still gets to a bowl game, hit the like button and help us get to 1,000. But now, let's get into it.
He's hit and set. He's taking a shot downfield, wide open end zone, caught, touchdown.
I've been going to games around the country all season, and the first 2 this year were USC and Nebraska. And it's crazy when I think back to how I felt after both those wins. SC battled back to beat LSU in the fourth quarter, and Miller Moss looked like a legit threat to win the Heisman. Nebraska dominated a now top 25 Colorado, and the offense's struggles from 2023 looked like they'd been fixed after they finished that day with 0 turnovers. So how'd they both go off the rails after such promising starts? Well, Nebraska's downfall came down to a lack of offense and questionable play calling. In 3 of their 4 losses, Satterfield's offense had the ball on the final drive of the game with a chance to tie or win. USC's had issues all over. Too many turnovers, too much pressure to succeed through the air, a defense that breaks down late in games. They're usually the more talented team on the field, and they're the favorite to win, but they can't get out of their own way, and in clutch moments, they don't know how to finish games. This week's an intense spot for both because it's the best chance for each to get to a bowl game. SC has to win 2 of their last 3, that includes UCLA and Notre Dame. Nebraska needs this one, Wisconsin or Iowa. They all fall into that third tier of the Big Ten where any team can beat the other. But if you've been following the last 3 weeks, you know they've both hit rock bottom and are desperate for a win on Saturday that can build their confidence back. This game's not a rivalry, but it's always significant since both are blue bloods. So I want to get into the history of this matchup, but first I got to shout out today's sponsor, PrizePicks. I was flying from Ole Miss to the Texans-Lions game on Sunday morning, but right before we took off, I put a couple lineups together for the early games, and I hit this $17 play that paid 51, then a $20 lineup that paid 50, with Jonathan Taylor and Brock Purdy both rushing for more yards than their projections. Making a lineup's easy. You just choose your player, then pick more or less than the listed line for their rushing yards, points, scores, or anything else you want to play. The lines aren't out for SC and Nebraska yet, but if you want to try PrizePicks out, you can sign up with our promo code CORN and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. And you don't even have to win to get that $50 promo. Just sign up, make a $5 play, and you get $50 when you use our code. We've had over 400 subscribers join us over there, and I've gotten a ton of winners sent to me in our Discord group. PrizePicks is available in Nebraska, California, Texas, and over 30 other states. So if you see your state colored in, you can play there. I'll give out my picks on Thursday night's live stream and in our Corn Crazed Discord group. But if you want to make a lineup and get in on the action with us, you can use our promo code and join us over there. Nebraska's first ever matchup with USC was back in 1969, and in the 5 games since, they haven't beaten them once. The 1970 game finished tied, and the only reason Nebraska won the national championship that year was because USC beat Notre Dame to give Devaney's team the #1 ranking. In 2006 and 2007, top 4 USC teams rolled to 18-point victories with College game day in town for both games. And in 2014, after Pelini got let go, Nebraska lost in the Holiday Bowl by 3 points. This is the first time neither team will be ranked, and only the second time that one of the two doesn't finish the season ranked in the top 5. This was the type of matchup that brought in the crazy media rights deal that broke up the Pac-12. This is the type of matchup that usually means a lot more than it will this season. But that doesn't mean this game doesn't matter. USC's looking towards the future. They know Miller Moss is done, and now the Jaden Maiava era begins. Lincoln's offense is loaded with weapons. Makai Lemon and Zach Branch were both top 5 receivers coming out of high school, and they got playing time as true freshmen before leading the team with 88 catches for 852 yards this season. Jaquavius Marks has been dominant as their top back with over 1,000 total yards, but behind him is Quentin Joyner, who's averaging over 8 yards a carry. The line's been up and down, but they're 21st in sacks allowed and 31st in tackles for loss. USC's offense doesn't have a lot of negative plays. The biggest question is Jaden Mayava. He was elite at UNLV as a true freshman last year, but he's only thrown 11 passes in 3 games as a Big Ten QB. He's got a big arm and made some great throws at UNLV, but the concern for Nebraska is his legs. When you've got as many receivers as SC does, you have to respect the pass game. But if Lincoln's smart, he's going to turn to a heavy run game that features both backs to make Tony White stack the box and leave corners in one-on-ones with some freak athletes. If you go back to Ohio State, Nebraska did a great job stopping what USC should look like Saturday. But after watching them against UCLA, I lost a lot of confidence in their ability to be consistent. Lincoln Riley wants to throw it. They're averaging over 40 passes a game, and if they get hot through the air, it's really tough to stop. I just don't know if he's learned from the interceptions that cost him wins against Minnesota, Penn State, and Washington. Nebraska's strengths obviously their D-line. UCLA's backs were held to 85 on the ground. Ohio State's only 54. The problem is you don't know what version you're going to get. The energy's been inconsistent. If they play with confidence, holding offenses to 21 points is the expectation. We've just seen things get out of hand 2 of these last 3 games, so it's really hard to predict what version we're going to see in LA. SC's defense made a huge jump after they hired Deanton Lynn. They ranked 72nd nationally, only giving up 22 points a game, but they're ranked 19th on third down conversions. They give up 370 yards a game, but they get stops when it matters. Nebraska's matchup when they're on offense is more about themselves than it is the opponent. Ohio State's got the #1 defense ahead of Texas, Indiana, and Penn State, but Raiola still marched down the field 4 times for scores, and that was with atrocious play calls that resulted in a bunch of negative yards. I've watched USC lose on the ground and through the air. Penn State and Maryland threw for almost 400 yards. Michigan ran for 290. Minnesota and Washington had a more balanced attack, but because they're average across the board and miss so many tackles, Nebraska's got to lean on the players that can execute. With Holgorsen in to call the plays, Rule said he expects more aggression. I'd expect more quick throws to get Raiola hot, and I'm sure they'll try to push it downfield since that's worked more often than it hasn't. We won't see a new offense, but we'll see him go at a different pace. We'll see receivers getting the ball faster since Holgorsen's not going to let Raiola hold on to it as long as he has been. And most importantly, we're going to see a better product with an elite offensive mind calling the plays. Looking at the edge, USC has the offense. They're putting up 437 yards a game, and they replaced the guy who's been holding them back from scoring more. Nebraska's D can stop them, but it really depends on if they want to or not. On defense, Tony White's still working with a more polished product. They're 6th in the Big Ten, 24th nationally in sacks, and 21st in points allowed. Are they going to be ready for another dual threat QB? I think that's TBD, but they're still a more consistent unit than USC. On special teams, Nebraska missed an extra point against UCLA. SC has a legit threat to take it to the house, so this pick was obvious. Looking at the coaching edge, I'd say it's about even. Lincoln's obviously more decorated, but he's been far below average in the Big Ten. Rule moved on from Satterfield and brought in Dana Holgorsen, who's very familiar with Riley since they coached with or against each other for almost 10 years. Physicality and player execution is going to be the difference on Saturday. It's not going to be coaching. And last is motivation. I lean Nebraska since they're still playing for a bowl game and could finish with a successful season by their standards. USC expects championships, and just getting to 6 wins doesn't mean as much to them. With Mayava in trying to earn the starting job for next season, I think the guys around him are going to play up to his level, and that'll be enough to make both sides excited to be there. Vegas listed SC as a 9-point favorite, which makes sense given their talent advantage. When they play their best, they can beat anybody. They beat LSU by 7, had Penn State dead to rights, and they blew out Wisconsin. Nebraska's looked like a mess more often than not. Their receivers can't get open. The run game's been average at best, and against good offenses, the DBs get worked. Making USC the favorite's fair, but saying they're going to win by 9 points when they lost as the favorite 4 times this season seems a little heavy. This week, I'm gladly taking the points. One, because Big Ten games are closer more often than they aren't. And two, because even in their 3 losses to Illinois, Ohio State, and UCLA, Nebraska kept it within 7. Making a prediction on a game that means a lot and means nothing at the same time makes me think we've got to look at the variables. This week, that's these 2 offenses. Jaden Mayaba's played a lot of football, but he hasn't faced a lot of teams with the speed Nebraska has up front, and he's never had to account for creative blitzes that Tony White's drawn up to keep him uncomfortable. To beat USC, you gotta force turnovers. You gotta make them pass it with pressure in their face. A clean pocket or open run lanes means they're just gonna score at will. And even though I'm more confident in Dana as a play caller than I was with Sat, I still don't think the offense has the firepower to keep up in a shootout. If Nebraska's D plays the way they did in Columbus and holds Riley's offense to 17 or 21 points, I think Nebraska's O can score enough to win. But another meltdown like we saw against UCLA, and I'm not banking on the same penalties to bail them out with 3 second chance opportunities that led to points. My prediction for this game isn't a prediction based on how good either of these 2 teams are, because at this point in the season, they're pretty similar in terms of talent. My prediction is strictly a reflection of my belief in which Nebraska team we see show up on Saturday. Right now, I feel like Holgerson was the key to getting these guys back engaged. I think the offensive players were frustrated and they were tired of watching the same shit fail every single week. A rejuvenated Nebraska team flying all the way to LA to play in a stadium filled with a bunch of their own fans should mean they come out fired up. So if that's the case, I'm going to take them to win outright 24-20 to lock in win number 6. And hopefully this is the second chance they needed to finish off with overachieving on their preseason expectations. I'll be at this game on Saturday with my entire family sitting on the USC sideline in section 122. And I'll be walking around that morning just happy to see that many Nebraska fans outside of Lincoln. And this will be my 3rd time watching these 2 play in person. And as you've all heard me say before, there isn't a team in the entire country that I'd rather watch them beat than USC. I'll be back with a guest interview tomorrow night, my prediction stream on Thursday. Then I've got family dinners on Friday in West Hollywood and on Saturday in Beverly Hills. So it's going to be another exciting weekend. And as soon as the game ends, I'm going to bounce back home to hop on for my post-game reaction. But I'm thinking that'll probably be an hour or so after the game ends, since I've got to get out of the stadium and then fight through the traffic. But I want to know what you think. So let me know in the comments below. Is the 9-point spread fair, or is that too many points to give for a 4-win team? Which Nebraska team do we see show up? The Ohio State one or the flat and ugly UCLA-Indiana one? And what's your prediction for the run-to-pass ratio? I know Dana's a pass-first, air raid guy, but I think you'll want to break things up. So I lean 65-35. However, I'm not going to criticize him if he decides to throw it 80% of the time. But that's all I've got for today. So until next time, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.